This is The Blockchain Show. The Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us. Welcome to The Blockchain Show. Today, we are joined by Chris Garner at the Oyster protocol team.
Hi, Ethan.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having us on.
So let's get into this. Internet advertising annoys pretty much everyone. I know that I've struggled with ads on podcasts before. I know that's a little different, but
yeah,
it looks like the team at Oyster has found a solution to help both users and websites deal with advertising. I'll be honest, at first I thought this was too good to be true, but I'll let you say a little bit about it.
Yeah, okay. So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Oyster Protocol. And we're building a platform, like you say, that will allow enterprise companies, small, medium businesses, and end users to do data storage. And what they will do is they'll buy our token Pearl, which will be pegged to the price of data. So say one Pearl will be 64 gigabytes of data storage per year. And how we're storing the data, which is completely unique and no one's done it at all, is on the IOTA Tangle. So that is a very novel spin on blockchain, whereby it's highly scalable. It's the Internet of Things, so it's every connected device that can talk to the internet. It is super fast compared to blockchain, i.e., there are very little transaction times and validation times. So each broker node within IOTA for each transaction confirms two other transactions. So it's very different in the way that it's set up to blockchain. And so you have these companies who want to store data that's highly secure, unhackable, and encrypted and anonymous, and they'll buy our token Pearl. And then that's our main product. And obviously, if you know a little bit about IOTA, the way data is stored there is that it needs a small amount of proof of work in order for it to last forever. So, the other hand, we've built the marketplace to allow website publishers and mobile app developers to insert a small line of JavaScript code that will give access to the marketplace so that when their end users land on their site and they consent, they will those website owners will start to earn Pearl, and the end user will be donating a small piece of their GPU and their CPU and electricity to experience an ad-free internet. So it's a two-sided marketplace, like I say, and yeah, we all know that internet advertising is terrible in the way that it annoys people with pop-ups, in the way that the internet is written for clickbait and pagination to create multiple ads. So we wanted to give those website owners a different opportunity to earn revenue. Like you say, it's very difficult for even blogs or podcasters to earn revenue without actually having to do advertising. So we would like to give them some alternative to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm just trying to think how it would scale up into podcasting, but that's a whole different thing.
Well, we've thought about this as well. So whereby you've got websites now or podcasts now that typically do spoken form advertising at the beginning and try to sell those slots for a specific amount of money, you could use the Oyster protocol to allow your end users, while they were listening to your podcast from their dwell time on their site, to be generating revenue for you as well. So, it's an alternative method of generating revenue. We were not saying that it's going to replace advertising in its entirety, and it's completely up to the end user whether they consent, and also the website publisher or the podcaster in how it's used as well. So again, long form content will generate higher revenue through the token because of the way that end users will dwell on those sites more actively than just ads alone.
The single line of code you talk about, you said that kind of solves a second thing.
Yes.
Was there a third problem in advertising that you guys have thought about? I'm not sure.
Well, I guess that the third problem is the end user experience, really, in that 80% of digital advertising now is owned by Google and Facebook. That's a $300 billion a year industry, and all the growth currently is coming to Google and Facebook. Premium tier one companies like the BBC or Wikipedia, those sites are struggling to generate revenue, or they have to ask for donation to generate revenue because they're ad free. So we want to provide that alternative to them. We're not saying that we can take large portions of revenue away from Google or Facebook. That's, they've built very solid platforms, but there is certainly a specific set of websites who are interested in creating better content and having a better end user experience. And like I say, we feel that the internet is broken if the only revenue stream that website owners can generate is via advertising. I mean, that wasn't why the internet was built. It was freedom of knowledge and sharing of information. And so we hope that the protocol will be adopted by sites that have that sort of ethos. And, we see now sites like The Guardian, they consistently are asking for donation. And, micropayments aren't really working. As soon as you have to ask an end user to get out their wallet or their credit card to pay, the drop-off rates are in the 90s to 95%. Whereby, and you see it starting with Steemit, whereby there is micropayments working better on the blockchain. And if you're just consenting to an ad-free experience by ticking a box, and that's the monetary exchange that takes place, then that's a lot easier. And we feel that end users are going to consent, in the 50 to 60% to do that.
Yeah. And so when they consent to, is the exchange only like their computer processing, or is there any other form of payment in order to get the ad-free capabilities?
No, it's just in the exchange in the computer processing. And what it really is that, like I say, there are similar, there's always competitors. So on the data storage side, there are blockchain companies called Filecoin or Storj or Sirecoin. They're the main ones in our space. But what they're doing is you can give your spare hard disk out and earn revenue in that way. What we're doing, and that's still centralized, it's not anonymous, and the upload and download speed you have to pay for as well. In addition to that, Filecoin, which is one of the most successful ICOs, still hasn't launched its technology to end users, so you can't really understand how that's going to work. I think that's going to happen Q4 of this year. Who knows? But the point is with us is that we're storing this data. It splits up into millions of chunks and put into IOTA's Tangle, where there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of broker nodes storing each chunk independently. This is completely unhackable. There's no other way. There's no other data storage provider that can offer that. And in addition to that, if you think about Amazon and AWS, which is a huge marketplace for data storage, they have an S3 bucket, which is for simple files like images. We could offer that in a decentralized way as well. So, it's attractive for, government agencies who want to do archiving. It's attractive for whistleblowers who want to put information there. But it also, AWS S3 bucket, if it's poorly configured, can be hacked as well. So, providing this alternative for data storage to businesses at a cost-effective rate will hopefully attract more customers to be buying Pearl. And then on the flip side of that, in order to keep that data there for long periods of time on the IOTA Tangle, that there has to be this kind of proof of work exercise. So it's only using a small part of the GPU. It's not mining. There's no mining with IOTA Tangle. And you've probably seen with Cyatech in the last month or so, there were a lot of malware-infected computers in China that were mining for Sirecoin. It generated them some revenue, but obviously it's highly illegal. our methodology isn't mining, and it's all consent and opt-in. So it's completely unique. No one's doing anything like what we're doing in the data storage side. And then on the advertising side, there is a really interesting company, BAT, or the Behavioral Attention Token, which is on a Brave browser, but they're still paying end users to watch ads. So it's not really improving. Well, it's improving the ad experience, i.e. that it's given users an option to get paid to use ads, but it's not given an alternative revenue stream for publishers or an end users to have an ad-free experience. So again, we're trying to do two things, but ultimately the data storage side is the most critical part, because that's how we will generate fiat income to buy Pearl token to keep the whole ecosystem moving.
And the Pearl token, for some reason I thought it was the Shell token. Is that something different?
Oh, yeah, the Shell token. So in April of this year, we released an airdrop of Shell token. And if you think about it, I'll try and explain it as best I can without getting too technological, is that for every broker node where the data is stored, and for every web node where the JavaScript code is being called by the end user, we create a unique mesh net, and this topography can be used for decentralized communications peer-to-peer. So right now, if you want to communicate like I'm doing with you, Ethan, we're doing it via the internet. It's going through my internet service provider, and it's going via satellites to your internet service provider. Both those internet service providers act like gatekeepers. They're filters of the internet. They can control the speed and also what happens with the data. So what Shell, our airdrop token, will be is a way, when people buy Shell, it'll be a way to communicate peer-to-peer, so that it will circumvent internet service providers, which, if you think about who they are, AT&T, they are some of the biggest companies in the world that are ultimately giving access to your information to any government agency. In addition to that, they're charging a ridiculous rate monthly to use it. So we're hopeful that as Pearl, our infrastructure for Pearl grows, that the Shell token will be used to communicate for decentralized applications. And if you think about it, like services like Telegram run with encryption, but they don't run on peer-to-peer networks yet. So they could be ways that we would work with companies like that or build our own solutions. As I say, right now, that token, we're not developing the technology for that token at this stage, although people do own Shell and you can buy the actual token on the exchanges. We're focused at developing the technology specifically for Pearl, which will then go on and enable Shell to be utilized over time as well.
Awesome. I see that you've been recognized by Deloitte, and you're in Australia, right?
Yes. So my background prior to Oyster is working in the ad tech industry. I've helped build several companies both in the UK and in Australia, and hyperscaled them and got them listed on the alternative investment markets, and worked for ASX companies, which is the Australian Stock Exchange, and also the London Stock Exchange companies. So Deloitte recognized companies that scale at super fast speeds. And I've worked at a couple of companies over the last 3 years that I've helped scale them. One grew over 10,000% in 3 years, and the other one grew over 5,000% in 3 years as well. So I've personally been recognized by Deloitte and the companies I've worked with in that. And I think there's the Tech Fast 50 in the US. There's the Tech Fast 50 in the UK. It's a global recognition for innovative companies using technology that are on hyper growth curves.
Wow, congratulations.
No worries. Well, that's the aim of me coming on board for Oyster, is to try to deliver the same sort of growth potential into the market as quickly as possible when the technology is ready to scale for enterprise companies to be able to use it. In its current form, it's in a minimum viable product. You can check it out by going to oysterstorage.com. And when you go to that site, you'll be presented a way to upload files. And right now we're limiting the file size to 5 megabytes, and we're getting about a 3 megabyte per second upload and download speed. The point is that that data is now then split into millions of chunks and being put onto the IOTA tangle. And ultimately, you can do that without a login and a password. You'll get then an encrypted key back. And that encrypted key is your access to that file at any time in the future. And that's showing what can be capable right now. Our job at the moment over the next series of sprints is to expand the data storage capacities into the terabytes and have the same latency with respect to upload and download speed, whilst also being able to scale horizontally for tens of thousands of concurrent users. So it's not, back in February when the project really started, we've come really far to get to where we are today, with 0 lines of code. Now we have a working minimal viable product, but the development still needs to be, we need to still keep investing in the development to get our product market ready.
I'm curious about the airdrop because I don't really know a whole lot about airdrops. I know that they differ from ICOs, and it's kind of like, it's more or less like you sign up, you get tokens for free. Is that kind of how that works?
Well, I can't really speak about other people's airdrops per se, because they are levels of complexity and there's certainly different reasons. But our one was done principally because we had the vision of what we were wanting to achieve, and we wanted to show early Pearl token holders loyalty. So anyone who had Pearl at a specific date in a wallet on an exchange was airdropped the token. 1-to-1, we dropped the token. So in that perspective, it just gives early adopters and early speculators access to that token, but it hasn't actually facilitated at this stage into a working product, because like I say, all of our development time is invested in Pearl. That's why we've done it in that sort of sense.
Right on. So for people listening that want to get involved, how far along are you, and is it possible for me to get some Pearl?
Yes. So, currently the main exchange we're on is KuCoin, which is owned by Ant Financial, which is Jack Ma's company. Jack Ma is the richest guy in Asia. He owns Alibaba and AliExpress. One of the fastest growing, I suppose it's a competitor to Amazon. Certainly it's huge in Asia and growing rapidly in America as well. You can buy our token Pearl and Shell on KuCoin, and we ask those people to check it out. Come to oysterprotocol.com, look at the white papers, look at what we're doing, join our Telegram group. We have 2 Telegram groups, one for traders and one for technology advocates and people who are interested in the market. And go and check out Oyster Storage as well, and start uploading and downloading files on both your phone and or your desktop to see an early stage of the technology in its adoption phase.
Yeah, that is really exciting. And I'm thinking about how digital media kind of changed the way that the newspapers, like the revenue streams, how they, some completely went out from under. But what do you see the future holding, for lack of a better term, with your protocol?
Okay, so like I say, once the technology is market ready, then we'll be signing up enterprise companies and businesses to start storing the data. And at that point, we can really scale the website publisher revenue stream. So, right now we're in a beta phase. We're testing the protocol on different web nodes as well to see, what the typical consent rates are. But the objective, obviously, for anyone who was a website publisher or a mobile app developer is to be able to offer, equivocal CPM rates. So that's cost per thousand impressions. And, those rates currently range from few cents to multiple dollars. So very premium sites might take $40 CPM. We hope that we can hit around the $5 to $7 mark, which is perhaps a high in industry standards, so that websites that not only are encouraged by having a ad-free internet and a better experience for their end users, but also they can earn dollar for dollar the same as they would for advertising as well. And it's not easy, no easy feat to be able to do that. But if we are able to find that sweet spot, then hitting the scale on both sides of the market will be a lot more achievable in a short space of time. And certainly, the conversations we've had with website publishers is they're all really want to invest in an alternative revenue stream. They prefer long form content writing and not clickbait headlines. And they also think that advertising is a small invasion of privacy as well, in the way that it collects data about your user behavior, and then that's being resold to advertisers and marketers. So, the challenge is obviously for us to grow the technology so that it's scalable for enterprise companies, but then building both sides of the marketplace from there, it will gain its own momentum over time as well.
That's really cool. You have a fantastic idea, and I can see you got a lot of momentum behind you. Everybody listening, would you mind saying your website one more time, please?
Yeah, so thanks, Ethan. The website is oysterprotocol.com, and from there you can check out our Telegram groups and also, our oysterstorage.com, where you actually can start uploading and downloading files. And as I say, really do have a look at what we're about. The technology is completely unique in the crypto space, and we've investigated all of those competitors, as I say, and none of them are really offering the same tools as we're offering. So, I would hope that, and I know that from looking at the roadmap, that the technical team is able to deliver the speeds and data storage size that we need to become attractive. But I'm confident that we'll get there, and be able to offer this product to those companies shortly.
I had a question about your competitors, but we already talked about that. I'm more interested in maybe some challenges over the next 5 years that you might run into implementing your vision. Can you speak to any of that?
Well, look, I think in this space, a 5-year outlook is probably a bit long.
Yeah, sorry.
Change very rapidly. Well, no, I mean, even in conventional tech, a 1 and 2 year outlook is as far as you really want to go, because of the technological advancements that can occur in all of that time. I mean, we've seen, what's happened in the last 12 months with the diversity of ICOs and the number of different products and services that they're attempting to offer. What I would say is that there are very few protocols out there that have actually built minimum viable products in the space of time that we have. And, I'm certainly confident that the technical team can deliver these kind of tools for people who are putting their data and storing their data in a centralized manner, where they're worried about IP theft and also hacking. So I think in the US alone, the intellectual property theft annually runs in between about $300 to $500 billion a year. And, when that innovation is actually stolen, what that means is there's a direct impact on jobs. So between 1 and 2 million people lose their jobs as a result of this. But also innovation then leaks to different rogue countries and rogue nations. And so then, companies then will start to suffer in what they're able to achieve from doing that. Now, those companies that have been hacked are supposed to be some of the most secure companies in the world. So an example is Equifax. Equifax is one of the largest credit scoring agencies globally. If that service holds IRS data, tax data, inland revenue data, credit card information, personal identifiable data. Only last year that was hacked with 170 million different profiles being lost. Now, if a company like Equifax, which is worth in their billions of dollars, cannot even store their data securely, they need to look at alternative data security methodologies. And the blockchain and specifically Oyster will give you that, because being decentralized and anonymous and using the high levels of sophisticated encryption that are used within blockchain, and specifically the Tangle and its acyclic graph, where the data is then split into millions of chunks. And even if you could unencrypt one chunk, you wouldn't necessarily be able to unencrypt another chunk, or you wouldn't even know that those two chunks were related at all. So that those companies can store data with an extra level of security and surety than they have now. And this is well, you've seen how cloud computing has grown into being what it is today. That still offers a huge amount of risk and single points of failure because it is centralized. So even Amazon Web Services, like I say, that it's poorly configured. I think 50 to 60% of the internet runs off Amazon Web Services, can be hacked because it is centralized in such a way. So, right now there is no real alternatives to what we're doing. And if big companies like Equifax, I think also LinkedIn have been hacked, Dropbox have been hacked as well. If those companies that are trying to give some level of security and censorship to the data that they own can't maintain it, then they need to be investing or looking at alternative ways to store that data. And that's hopefully where we come in. Yeah,
that was a very good answer. I really appreciate that thoughtful answer, because that brings back a lot of things that people just, they maybe know about, they just choose to ignore because it's more convenient. But
I think even JP Morgan, JP Morgan was hacked as well. So, you got big banks that what happens with hacking is that if there's personal identifiable data being hacked, then you have to, by law, announce that as a hack. And you have to notify those people that have been hacked, similar to how Facebook had to notify the 80 to 90 million people that data that they allowed access to through those apps, through the Cambridge Analytica scandal. So that's one instance. But all the IP theft that doesn't involve personal identifiable data, you never hear of, because if those agencies release that information, it affects those share prices. So where it comes to things like innovation with electric cars, solar energy, and a lot of the futuristic things which are being invested in, I suppose the automated mobile self-driving cars as well. This stuff is being spent, and usually in the US, spent huge amounts of money in investing in the innovation. If they can't store their innovation securely and it leaks to a foreign country, then they can steal the march without any level of investment, and also take that revenue away from that country's GDP as well. So it's a really big problem, because you don't hear about it. End users will only hear about the personal hacks, which is bad enough in its own self. I mean, just yesterday in the UK, Ticketmaster had released that they've been hacked, and the hack went from something like April 2016 to June 2017, and they only just released the fact that they've been hacked today, and there are like hundreds of thousands of people's data that has been taken. So you don't really hear about it a lot as an end user. You think that your data is secure with your bank or with even your personal data on Dropbox, but it's not. No one can offer that because it is centralized. So, ultimately companies need to be thinking differently if they want to prevent this, and to give, some surety about the intellectual property that they own.
Yeah, it sounds like we're better off assuming that our data is not safe, and we should really look into Oyster. And I like your logo because it kind of looks like a maze, and there's so much to navigate. I'm uh,
Yeah,
I'm grateful
yeah.
that you're out there doing the good fight for us.
Well, look, I mean, it's important that companies and even end users have access to secure information. I mean, even now with Google Drive or with Dropbox as well, when you store your data there, they scan that data, and what they do with that information, is anyone's guess. But they openly give that data to the NSA if they're being requested, or government agencies. In addition, if they're scanning your data on those files, you're not given any anonymity, and you're presumed, you have a presumptive standpoint. So a lot of people don't realize that when they're storing their data in Google Drive, that it can be used against them for one reason or another. And also, it's not safe if they're going to be scanning it. What are they doing with that metadata? And if that metadata is hacked, who has access to what? Similarly, like if you've got photographs on there of certain things, if that data is then lost, you've lost all of the copyright of that information. So, it's really intriguing. I don't think the laws necessarily can govern what really is allowed to do with your data in the right way. So there's a lot of things with GDPR, which is changing the way that people can store data. But companies like Facebook and Google per se are not really consenting to even the GDPR laws that are coming out. They're basically saying, if you use our service, you consent to this, but it's not GDPR compliant about where that data is stored, which country is it housed, and how it's accessed as well. So it's interesting to see what will happen, and whether Europe in any way will take action against large corporations in such a way. I mean, they have taken action in the past. So, it's going to be interesting in the next 12 months with how that's adopted.
I really appreciate you having such a good solution. I mean, a lot of people like to highlight the problems, but you guys actually have something like a solution that is not really being thought about, and that's really cool. I'm interested to follow you guys and keep in contact if we can.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd love to keep in contact when we've got more end users using the protocol. Get more of them involved in sharing information. In addition to that, offering you an opportunity to use the protocol on your site as well, to see if you can earn Pearl token for people browsing on your or listening to your podcasts.
That's fantastic. What's that saying? If it's free, you're probably the product, or something like that.
No, I'm not sure on that one. I mean, if it's free, there's always a price that you're going to pay. But ultimately, paying a small percentage of your GPU and your CPU is a different price than paying with your data and your privacy, and that being marketed and being sold to by advertisers. There's an extreme difference with that. Yeah. So if it's free, always be skeptical of the tools that are free. And even now, it was shown that that Facebook have these like buttons in and around the net. You don't have to be on Facebook to like stuff. Even if you don't like stuff on those pages, you're still being tracked by Facebook just by the very nature of them having that there. It's huge, the web of I suppose the web of data that they've collated together, and how that's used. They can't control it. It's been proven that they can't control it. You can access any data on Facebook with a credit card. They don't vet who owns that credit card, and they don't vet the messaging that you're putting across in the advertising either. So, it's a price that people need to be aware that they're paying when they use those services.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate about the Oyster protocol. I mean, that's just really cool.
Yes, yeah. Well, look, we've take the good fight, and we'll see. And we obviously everything is consensual. So just want to reiterate, it's not mining on any end users, and I believe that people will consent. Over 50 to 60% of the time for that experience, as opposed to seeing ads. So we'll see how that bears out with our beta testing.
Chris, this has been a really educational talk. I know we could talk on for quite a while, but maybe we'll have to have you come back on the show sometime.
Okay. Yeah, would like to come back. So we'll see how it develops over time. But Ethan, thanks so much for having us. And yeah, feel free to check out Oyster Protocol when you get a chance.
All right, we'll do. And everybody listening, do the same thing. We'll talk to you all next week. Thank you, Chris.
All right. See you, Ethan. Thanks.
To learn more, visit theblockchainshow.com.